T-1000, the Terminator model from Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and probably the most recognizable killer robot in movie history. Not some muscle-bound tank with an Austrian accent, but flowing silver metal that pours right through a set of prison bars and reassembles into a man on the other side. It's an iconic scene, so iconic that memes, cover art, and even science press releases have been ripping it off without permission ever since. And here's where it gets interesting, because in 2023 a team of scientists went and literally reshot that scene. Not in Photoshop, not with $1 million CGI budget, in a lab with a tiny metal figure that melted, oozed through the bars of a cage, and reformed into a little humanoid on the other side. I'm not kidding. We'll come back to that clip later, and trust me, it'll surprise you. But today's big question is the same as always. Can you actually build a real T-1000 in our world? And would it work the way it does in the movie? Welcome! You're watching MiliTime Fiction. In today's episode, we'll break down what a liquid Terminator could even be made of, whether science has any leads in that direction, and while we're at it, try to work out where this thing got its energy and why it behaves the way it does on screen. Alright, let's get into it. So what even is the T-1000? Let's start with the basics. Unlike the T-800 with its titanium endoskeleton, the T-1000 has no solid frame at all. It's made entirely of mimetic polyalloy. Thanks to that polyalloy, the T-1000 can copy just about anything it touches: a person, a tile floor, a blade. But, and this matters, the film actually plays fair with the rules. It can grow stabbing and slashing weapons out of itself, knives, hooks, crowbars. But complex mechanisms with moving parts, firearms, and definitely chemistry like explosives, those it can't reproduce. Best case, it mimics the look of a pistol, but it can't fire the thing. Hang on to that detail. It'll come back to bite us when we start asking what he's made of. And let me plant one more question we'll circle back to at the end. The Terminators travel through time via a machine that only sends organic matter. The T-800 gets wrapped in living flesh, so it passes. But the T-1000 is metal. And we never see any organic leftovers at the spot where he appears. So how did a metal assassin slip through a machine that only takes organics? Keep that one in your back pocket. Liquid metal? Yeah, no. In the movie, the friendly T-800 explains to little John Connor that the T-1000 is made of liquid metal. And this is where physics quietly taps out. Metals just don't behave like that. Here's the thing. If the polyalloy is a metal, then to flow and resolidify it has to change state, from solid to liquid and back. And that's governed by its melting point. Mercury's is actually below zero, minus 39 degrees Celsius, about minus 38 Fahrenheit, which is why mercury is liquid at room temperature. Tungsten, on the other hand, melts at around 3,400 degrees Celsius, roughly 6,100 Fahrenheit, which makes it one of the most heat-resistant metals on the planet. Sure, pressure can nudge a melting point around, but to shift it enough to matter, you'd have to change the pressure enormously, with specialized equipment. And on Earth's surface it's more or less constant all the time, so scratch that factor, which means a metallic T-1000 would have to heat and cool itself to change shape. Cooling's no problem, there's room temperature air all around, it'll cool on its own. But what heats it? That's the mystery. A liquid heating element inside a liquid robot? Sounds absurd. So what's he actually made of? Since honest-to-goodness liquid metal doesn't square with physics, let's run through some real candidates. I've got three, from the most down-to-earth to the most sci-fi. Candidate 1. Liquid silicon. The first thing that throws people off is the metallic sheen of the polyalloy. It's shiny, so it's metal. Yeah, sure, non-metals shine too? Silicon, for one, has a hell of a shine. But hold on, silicon melts at 1,414 degrees Celsius, about 2,580 Fahrenheit, so it's out, right? Well, who said anything about melting it? There's a theory that the T-1000 is essentially one giant liquid processor, or at the very least a device carrying one inside it, and that's not pulled out of thin air. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison have worked on the concept of liquid silicon computing, the idea being to ditch classic transistors and merge hardware and software into single reconfigurable blocks that both compute and store data. Conceptually, it's a bit like what they showed in Ex Machina, though there it was their own made-up material for the AI's brain. And yeah, let's be honest, liquid silicon computing is also not a working technology yet, just early research and proof of concept. I'm bringing it up not because someone's going to build a Terminator out of it tomorrow, but because it's one of the few even remotely science-based concepts anywhere near the idea of a thinking liquid. But it's not the only one. Candidate 2, liquid gallium, and here's where reality caught up. That's a real metal, one that melts at just 30 degrees Celsius, about 86 Fahrenheit, which is below your body temperature. It literally melts in the palm of your hand. And in 2023, researchers at Carnegie Mellon University and the Chinese University of Hong Kong took gallium, packed it with magnetic particles, and produced a thing with the proud name Magnetoactive Solid Liquid Phase Transitional Machine. Now here's how it works, because this is where we get the answer to two of our questions at once. Those magnetic particles do two jobs. First, switch on an alternating magnetic field and the particles heat up through induction, melting the gallium around them. There's your answer to what heats him. Not a liquid heater inside, an external magnetic field that induces currents in the metal and heats it from within. Second, those same particles let you steer the puddle, move it wherever you want with a magnetic field. And here's the kicker, the researchers put a 10mm humanoid figure in a cage, switched on the field, and it melted, drained through the bars, and re-solidified into a little humanoid on the other side within a matter of seconds. That is, beat for beat, the scene from Terminator 2, shot for real in an actual lab. But, and I've got to be the pedant here, we're still a long way from a real T-1000, like walk to the moon far. For one, it's a figure about a centimeter tall, roughly a fingernail, not a 6-foot-plus killer. For another, it's driven from the outside by a magnetic field. It has zero will of its own. It's a puppet on magnetic strings. Brains like our silver screen heartthrob? Not even a little. And the scientist's goal was modest: medicine and industry. Deliver a drug, fish a swallowed object out of a model's stomach, ooze liquid metal into some hard-to-reach gap, and solidify there to solder something. And even that has a catch. Pure gallium would melt right through a living body from body heat, so for medical use they'd have to blend in bismuth and tin to raise the melting point. So the real liquid Terminator is a brainless, remote-controlled blob, but a blob that physically pulled off the T-1000 signature trick. And you've got to admit, that's not sci-fi anymore. That's something. Candidate 3, Nanites, the best fit and the least realistic. And now for the concept that explains the T-1000 better than any other, while being the furthest from reality. Nanites, as in an android built from billions of microscopic robots, like a living organism made of cells. But nanites are exactly what elegantly explain the T-1000 abilities that nothing else can. Look, why does he have to physically touch an object to copy it? Why isn't just looking enough? Because the swarm has to physically read the object's data off of it. Chemical makeup, structure, density, thermal signature. Some nanites are scanners, others are builders, others hold the shape. You can't gather all that with your eyes. You need contact. And by accurate copy, I don't just mean looks the part. Think about the human body. Hair is one thing, skin's another, nails a third, all with different physical properties. To pass as a human on every level, you'd have to reproduce him literally at the molecular scale. Liquid metal can't do that. By definition, it doesn't have that fine-grained internal complexity. A swarm of specialized nanites, though, in theory, yeah. And this is where that question I asked you to hold on to resurfaces. The time machine only sends organic matter. The T-1000 isn't organic. But if he can imitate a living organism so precisely that he fools even the time machine's sensor, then either he genuinely replicates organics at the molecular level, or the writers just ran out of explanations. My money's on the latter, a fantasy freebie we'll politely set aside. But if you insist on finding logic in it, only nanites even come close to holding it together. Power source. Whatever he's made of, he's got to get his energy from somewhere. A battery that could power a machine like that? We're nowhere close. So the T-1000 is most likely siphoning energy out of his surroundings. 3 options: sunlight, static electricity, or magnetic fields. Sunlight's out immediately. The T-1000 is shiny, is highly reflective, so sunlight just bounces off him. A solar panel, by contrast, is coated in dark, light-absorbing material, otherwise it collects nothing. A mirror doesn't generate electricity. Swing and a miss. Static electricity means pulling energy straight out of the air by transferring charge through a dielectric. Nikola Tesla was doing this back in the day, powering wireless lamps through thin air. In theory, the T-1000 could harvest electricity from the potential difference between the ground and the atmosphere. Elegant, but the efficiency of that trick is, to put it gently, depressing. Now the third option, magnetic fields. Remember the real Gallium robot. It was both heated and moved by an external alternating magnetic field. Meaning, in the real world, a Gallium phase transition machine runs on exactly that, a magnetic field. Now map that onto how the T-1000 behaves in the movie. Ever notice how he's constantly hanging around machinery and sources of magnetic fields? There's a great fan observation. During the chase after John, he doesn't hop on a motorcycle, he climbs into a giant rig. Maybe the point is that the bigger the vehicle, the bigger its electromagnetic field, the better fed he is. Runs on machinery, and bigger machinery pays better. And what I love is that this is no longer pure fantasy. It's a hypothesis that now has a real physical prototype behind it. Though to avoid pure guesswork, I'll add, the truck could be explained more simply. He might have just failed to get the motorcycle started in the lot and was losing sight of John. Plus, a rig is bigger, handier for shoving everyone else off the road, so maybe he wasn't recharging at all, just picked the bigger ride, like any self-respecting maniac. But the magnetic field version is still the juiciest, and here's where we split it into two questions, like we always do. First, can you build a real T-1000? A full one, 6 feet plus, with intelligence and a will of its own? No. That's beyond anything we've got. Second, is a creature like that even useful? And here it gets more fun. Even if we did build it, a perfect liquid assassin that copies anyone and pours through bars. That is, putting it mildly, not a technology to celebrate. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. So maybe it's for the best that all we can manage so far is a brainless blob the size of a fingernail. Let's keep it that way. To wrap up, a full-blown T-1000 is still a flat-out impossible technology, but unlike how it looked even a decade ago, reality has taken a very concrete step toward it. Carnegie Mellon's Gallium phase machine literally reshot his signature trick, and as a bonus, closed out our main gripe, the what heats him one. An external magnetic field heats him, and that same field steers him. So in short, build it? No. Use it like in the movie? Even more no. But dream about it and watch a working prototype that you absolutely can. On my liquid metal scale, it earns about 4 melted Terminators out of 10, a markdown because a real T-1000 isn't in the cards, but a fat markup because real science has crept closer to it than anyone expected. And that's that. Let me know what you think about the episode and drop ideas for future ones in the comments below. This has been MiliTime Fiction. Good luck out there and see you next time.